All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this daily forecast. So the forecast for tomorrow, tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. So let's start by looking at the economic calendar here. As you can see, tomorrow we're Tuesday, and we have a bunch of news, just not the greatest news. So we have some euro, GBP, Canadian, US dollar, and finally the Australian dollar CPI. But that's it. So we don't really have any um, big US dollar news tomorrow. We have PMI. PMI is interesting, but in this case, we have an orange folder, so I'm not expecting a lot from that. But overall, since we have news across pretty much all currencies, I think there's going to be decent volatility tomorrow because today was pretty poor, to be honest. Today was yeah, it was low volatility overall and mostly consolidation throughout most markets. So let's start by taking a look here at the dollar. So basically what we were expecting today for the dollar was a sting back inside this daily fair value gap, which we never got. We just consolidated basically today. Yes, we went higher, but not in a significant way, and we just mostly consolidated. So yeah, here on the dollar, we're just expecting the same thing as yesterday. So a retracement back inside that fair value gap is the only thing we can look for. And then after that, we can have the real move towards this next high right there. Okay. So that's it for the dollar. Let's take a look at our majors. So GU was the one of the most interesting ones. We got this thing inside the fair value gap, but right now we closed inside of it. I'm starting to think, could we potentially reach all the way back inside this higher fair value gap, which also overlaps with the golden area somewhere in here to then continue lower? That would, it would fit with what we just said on the dollar. So GU definitely stays on the interest list, but for now, we don't have anything. EU, no. EU is not great. No, don't like it for tomorrow. USD Canadian, not great either. USD CHF, okay, so USD CHF looks a lot like the dollar itself, and I still think that a retracement back inside this fair value gap would be appropriate if we want to continue higher. So something like this. So that stays in the most interesting ones for tomorrow. And then USD JPY didn't reach the target just yet. Again, same thing, waiting for that retracement back inside the daily fair value gap to then target higher. So yeah, I would say USD CHF, GU, and USD JPY would be my favorites. Now, moving on to the metals, gold. So on gold, we actually had this tiny daily fair value gap right here. I forgot to mark it yesterday in the forecast, but we got a sting into it. We came really close to the zero point 0.5 level, and right now it seems like we're rejecting from it, but the rejection is quite weak. And also, I want to mention that we got a sting inside this 4 hour fair value gap down here. So right now, what I'm seeing on gold, I think we're gonna go higher when the market opens, probably reach inside the golden zone to then have the real move lower, and that would also fit with the dollar because when the dollar moves lower, gold moves higher, right? Their correlation is inverted. So yeah, I would say gold. I wouldn't take a short right now. I would wait. I want to see one last sweep. So this is the sweep I'm looking for. So this high right here. If we can sweep that to then continue lower, that would be a beautiful setup here on gold. Now silver did look a little bit better last night, um, because we had this daily fair value gap, which we are respecting really nicely at the moment. And the rejection from that daily fair value gap is much cleaner here on silver because we created a 4 hour fair value gap um, from that daily fair value gap. So I'm a little bit 50-50 here on the metals because you see on silver here, I wouldn't be expecting a sweep of this high, but on gold, I am expecting a sweep of that high. So it's really going to be about reacting and seeing, well, do the metals want to start heading lower already, or do we want to sweep something else? And so in that situation, I would say it's mostly just seeing what happens and then reacting in lifetime to what happens. But it would be really interesting to monitor this 4 hour fair value gap here on silver to get a good idea of what price wants to do. But right now it's not too clear because I'm seeing silver and I say bearish, but then I look at gold and I say bullish. So yeah, it's not too clear. Yeah, gold really seems like it wants to sweep to then continue lower. I don't know, lads. It's not too clear right now. Again, let's see what it does and let's react. Crude oil doing random things. But again, it's because they were talking about what was it again today? I don't know. I think Iran confirmed that they were having talks with the states and that this talks were going well, and so that calmed the energy markets here. So crude oil went lower, and right now does seem like we want to continue lower, which is not great for my bias, but hey, we have to do with it. There's this 4 hour fair value gap right now that we can push lower from. Maybe we could sweep this swing low, which is last week's low. So something like this to then finally continue higher. I hope that's what we see tomorrow, but right now, if I'm being objective about what I'm seeing on the chart, uh, I'm seeing lower prices here, at least for the short term, until we reach this low right here. Okay. So yeah, it's not too clear here on crude oil. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Now, Bitcoin, this is beautiful. As I said, we got the sting back inside this higher fair value gap, and right now we are respecting it beautifully. We can definitely head lower from here. We just have to see if this second candle here from this 4 hour fair value gap, uh, i- is it a disrespect of the fair value gap? Because there's still 3 hours to go. First candle it's not a rejection, but it's not a disrespect at the same time. Now we need to wait for this second candle to close, and then we'll have a good idea. But yeah, overall, Bitcoin, still bearish for the week. If we do close something like that, respecting the daily fair value gap, the next target is definitely this low right here. All right, so now let's move on to the indices. So S&P 500 here, um, closed the day, all, well, S&P and Nasdaq, not Russell and Dow Jones, but S&P and Nasdaq closed lower today. Um, at some point during the day, we were going higher just before, during London session and the start of New York. And then all of a sudden, price just completely reversed and started going lower. And we just went back inside this bigger consolidation here that we've had for, well, since Thursday last week, basically. So I don't know, guys. Like right now, I would say bearish still. I'm maintaining my bias here on the S&P. I think the next logical target is this low. Um, 4 hour, we don't have context, do we? Actually, yeah, we do. Well, it's the worst context ever, but this right here is a 4 hour fair value gap. Maybe we can push lower from that. I would be surprised. We also have a 1 hour fair value gap a little bit higher. I don't know. It's hard to tell here. We've been stuck in a consolidation for well for 3 days now. So we have to wait for price to move somewhere and do something significant. We can before we can draw any conclusions here. Now Nasdaq, similar but much stronger again. Um, but we we didn't reach this high right here, and we reversed kind of like out of nowhere. We also created a 4-hour bearish fair value gap right here. It's not the greatest fair value gap, but it's there. And yeah, so overall Nasdaq has been stronger, but still, the overall market is telling me I see red flags everywhere. So I don't know, we'll see. But again, just like the metals here, I can't reach a clear bias if I'm being completely honest. And I would just like to react, wait and see, wait for price to do something significant and then react to it. But right now, if I had to force an idea on the S&P, I would say short, but then on Nasdaq, I would say long, just because we're so close of that all-time high. And maybe perhaps we can just grab that liquidity very quickly and then we can drop. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And finally, the crosses here. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's not great. I don't like this. CHFGPY. Let's wait. Let's wait. Australian dollar CHF. Okay, that's not too bad. We can still retrace back inside this daily fair value gap. I think that is still possible to then continue higher. So that's staying on the interest list for sure. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Yeah, still we're still at the same spot we were last night, basically, when we did the weekly forecast. So nothing changed here. We're still waiting for the same thing. Euro Canadian, we didn't push higher from that 4-hour fair value gap. That's good to know. And we still have this daily fair value gap down here. So yeah, okay. Same thing here on Euro Canadian. It would be just waiting for retracement back here. And then GBP Canadian. Okay, that's a little bit better than the other ones. Do we have a 4-hour fair value gap? We don't. We don't. Okay, so that's not interesting. That's not interesting. We'll wait and see what happens here. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar just kept expanding today. And right now we do have this daily fair value gap that we can trade back into to then target higher. So that's still interesting right here. And finally, GBP Australian dollar. Okay, so we got the retracement back inside the daily fair value gap. Now we need to see, can we reject from it? Can we actually reject from that daily fair value gap? Right now, we don't have any evidence that price wants to respect it, so we still have to wait um, for some evidence. Probably my evidence here would be this 4-hour bullish fair value gap failing. Once this fair value gap fails, then yeah, then I would probably be taking a short here on GBP Australian dollar. But for now, that's it. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of the forecast, um, today it was mostly consolidation across all markets here. Nothing significant, pretty slow Monday. And so tomorrow I'm expecting more volatility. And for many markets, it's about seeing what happens and then react. So on the majors here, we do have USD CHF, GU, and USD JPY that are not too bad. But again, I wouldn't do anything on the majors until we get a retracement here on the dollar. Okay. If that doesn't happen, then I'm not looking at the majors. Okay. Then on the metals, 50-50 right now. It's about reacting. Gold, I would say I'm expecting a sweep. So higher prices, then lower prices. But then on silver, it does look like we already want to move lower from that 4 hour fair value gap right there. And so it's a little bit 50-50 right now on the metals. Crude oil, if I'm being objective, I think we should see some lower prices, logically speaking, but we can still sweep the previous week's low to then continue higher. That's also a possible scenario. Bitcoin, honestly, just lower prices. It has been moving beautifully here, Bitcoin. So just lower prices overall. And then the indices, again, just like gold and silver, 50-50. S&P 500 is telling me bearish. Nasdaq is telling me bullish. So I can't reach a clear decision here. So that's it, guys, for the forecast. I'm sorry, I know there's nothing very conclusive here in today's forecast, but hey, the markets haven't been moving today, so we'll have to wait for some kind of, you know, big movement to catch a move. All right. So I will see you in tomorrow's forecast. Take care, trade safe. All right. Ciao, lads.